Well, welcome to the 700 Club. It looks like we may not be facing the threat of a government shutdown every few weeks. Senate Republicans and Democrats have reached an agreement to keep the government open for the next 2 years, but it's not a done deal just yet.
First, the Senate has to take up a bill on DACA to protect the illegal immigrants who were brought to the United States as children. Abigail Robertson brings us the story from Washington.
Lawmakers hope to pass a budget deal and narrowly avoid another government shutdown, but they're also up against a new deadline. They have to pass legislation that protects thousands of undocumented immigrants known as the Dreamers before the DACA program ends in March. While House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi gave a marathon speech on DACA, evangelical leaders from across the country urged lawmakers to act on immigration reform.
For many years, we have failed to address an issue that harms our nation in so many ways, as well as these individuals who 90% of Americans and 80+% of Republicans are saying deserve a path to citizenship.
Senator James Lankford says throughout his 7 years in Congress, everyone agrees immigration needs attention, yet they consistently delay fixing it.
This is a unique moment that I think that we're standing in, that there's a deadline and a requirement to actually act on some issues related to these individuals.
Lankford says senators are discussing multiple options and hoping to compromise on a solution that honors the law while also showing humanity towards DACA recipients.
We do need to be able to have consistent laws in our country. That's a part of the responsibility of government to be fair in all places. But we also understand the humanity. Each individual is created in the image of God. Each individual has value and worth. Each individual has dignity.
Independent Senator Angus King agrees, citing Matthew 25 and the scriptural obligation to protect the Dreamers.
I was a stranger and you took me in. And that's what we're talking about here.
King also warns that pulling almost 800,000 Dreamers out of society could have a dramatic backlash on the economy.
We need people. And we need people who are willing to commit to our country and work hard. And that's what this group of people have already demonstrated. And in fact, would have to demonstrate in order to be qualified for the path to citizenship after 10 years.
The senators hope to reach a compromise on this part of the immigration deal by next week. President Trump, however, says he will only sign a deal on DACA that comes with money for his promised border wall. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Well, here's a novel idea. Why not separate immigration reform from the budget? Why in the world are the two linked together? Why put yourself in a situation where it's like a showdown at the OK Corral? Who's going to draw first? Who's going to blink first? And will the government be shut down? And all the government employees wondering, am I going to have a job next week? It just doesn't make any sense. Pass an immigration reform. It's obvious. It's been screaming for reform for years. Pass it. Do your job. But don't tie the budget to it. We need a functioning government. But there's something else on this budget that really disturbs me, and that is we seem to keep on spending ourselves into a hole in $20 trillion in debt. At some point in time, the world's going to stop buying our bonds, and that would be catastrophic. So when do you hit that? Is it at 22 trillion? Is it at 25 trillion? Is it at 30 trillion? At some point, we've got to stop this deficit spending. Well, in other news, a monster winter storm has moved from the Midwest towards the Northeast. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the storm brought heavy amounts of snow in many places, along with slick road conditions that wreaked havoc on motorists from Iowa to New England. Gary Lane has the story.
Just outside Washington, D.C., a man driving a pickup truck lost control in a slick parking lot and crashed through the walls of a Maryland bakery shop.
I started applying on my brakes as I came in. I took hold, and the truck had a mind of its own and went to the building.
In New Haven, Connecticut, a FedEx truck driver on a delivery hit an icy patch and skidded down a neighborhood street. And it's all because of the latest winter storm, and it brought death and destruction as it moved across the plains and into the Northeast. Parts of western Ohio and Pennsylvania received up to 9 inches of snow. Erie, Pennsylvania broke its all-time snowfall record with more than 12 feet of snow. The average snow accumulation for the city by early February is about half that amount. And some headaches for commuters just outside New York City. Multiple car accidents caused this bridge to shut down. Slick roads wreaked havoc on parts of the South. In Arkansas, several motorists were injured. Their cars were mangled and overturned. The driver of this red car was forced to make a split-second decision.
I either had to hit the cars that were turned over, hit the car that was spinning out in front of me, or come down this ravine, and I chose the ravine.
In Texas, a fatal crash cost a driver his life. And in Georgia, high winds damaged trees and structures west of Atlanta. This garage was moved off its foundation. On the East Coast, air flights were canceled or delayed. At BWI Airport, federal aviation officials are investigating what caused this Southwest Airlines flight to skid off the runway. All 149 people on board evacuated safely. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, they're digging out from 7 inches of snow. And some beleaguered residents say they're ready for winter to come to an end.
It probably won't be, but I'm hoping it is. I think we had enough.
Others had a more positive attitude.
I love the snow. I'm a skier, and so I'm excited.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Turning now to the Middle East. For years, Iran has pledged to annihilate Israel, and now, because of the Syrian civil war, Iranian forces are closer to the Jewish state than ever before. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, that's why Israeli leaders went to the front lines to see this growing danger for themselves.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and cabinet ministers visited Israel's northern border on the Golan Heights, overlooking into Syria. They received a briefing from Israel's chief of staff and other army officers.
I'm impressed by the great work the Israeli army is doing here to defend our borders, to defend our country. Our face is toward peace, but we're ready for any scenario, and I don't recommend that anyone tries us.
Israel has been warning Iran is creating a land bridge from Tehran all the way to Israel's border with Syria, and expressed their concern of Iran's growing military presence in both Syria and neighboring Lebanon. Middle East analyst Jonathan Spire told CBN News Iran is succeeding and says the West needs to counter their aggression.
The Iranians have the most sophisticated, far-reaching policy. Unlike every other country looking at this region of Syria, Iraq and Lebanon, the Iranians don't see 3 countries. They see one space, and they're busy building up their forces, backing their friends, facing down their enemies, all the way along that long contiguous space between the Iraq-Iran border and the Mediterranean Sea. And that's the real potent challenge to Western interests. And yeah, I think the most urgent thing in a certain sense is to get that in perspective and to start to, in a sense, build a similar policy to the Iranians to counter their policy of seeing this area as one space and seeing what pieces do we have on the board, how can we help those pieces move forward, how can we turn back the pieces being operated by our enemies.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The Israel Allies Foundation honored Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales for his historic decision to move his nation's embassy to Jerusalem. Guatemala is the second country after the United States to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The foundation gave Morales a plaque and prayed a special blessing over him. But the president said he was just doing what should have been done.
From the bottom of my heart, I tell you, I don't feel deserving of an award. I'm just trying to do the right thing and allow my God, my people, and history to judge me.
And Gordon, Guatemalan leaders have also said their God inspired them to make that decision.
And let's hope other countries get inspired as well. But here's the unique thing. Israel has designated Jerusalem as its capital since the Six-Day War, so it's been over 50 years. It's the only nation on the planet where other nations aren't recognizing the capital that a sovereign state has already recognized. Now, Russia, let's add Russia to that mix. Last year, they recognized West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Trump was a little broader, if you will, recognizing all of Jerusalem. And then you have here Guatemala. Let's hope it catches on because we need to recognize Israel has a right as a sovereign state to designate their capital. And the other nations of the world should honor that designation. Terry?
Well, up next, the new movie from Clint Eastwood about 3 American heroes.
Finally, one day, I just said, do you guys think you could play yourself?
We said yes right away.
And then when he left the room for the first time, we all kind of looked at each other like, can we really do this?
Ephraim Graham takes us behind the scenes of the 1517 to Paris after this.
Have you been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, or other chronic spine conditions? Are you ready to find lasting relief? Call Laser Spine Institute, the nation's leader in minimally invasive spine surgery, to learn how a less than 1-inch incision can have you up and walking within a few hours of surgery, free from chronic back pain and with no hospital stay and no lengthy recovery.
Call 1-844-602-BACK now for your free MRI review.
Take your first step in joining over 60,000 patients who found lasting relief at Laser Spine Institute.
My boss would send me home because I was in excruciating pain. Going to Laser Spine Institute, I go in, I have the procedure, and walk out a changed person, good to go back to work. It's changed my life completely.
If you've been told you might need neck or back surgery, call 1-844-602-BACK now for your free MRI review.
Laser Spine Institute, a less than 1-inch incision, a lifetime of standing tall.
Tomorrow, the Emmy-winning correspondent who wants to bring good news to your children. Plus,
a door open for darkness.
A teenage gang member with a death wish.
Someone's gonna kill me, and then this life will be over.
And he planned to pull the trigger.
I'd just rather die than to live like this.
Watch what saved his life.
I'm done with this. I am not doing this anymore.
On the next 700 Club.
Well, in 2015, 3 Americans traveling through Europe prevented a terrorist attack that could have killed hundreds of people. Now, one of the most famous directors in Hollywood is bringing their story to the big screen in the 517 to Paris. Ephraim Graham talked to the heroes about playing themselves in the movie.
August 21st, 2015.
We begin with breaking news overnight. 3 Americans are hailed as heroes for foiling an attack on a high-speed train in Europe.
Alex Skarlatos, Anthony Sadler, and Spencer Stone.
2 American servicemen and their friend on vacation in France praised for stopping what could have been a mass killing.
Dominate headlines around the world.
You see them right there getting the Legion of Honor, France's highest civilian award.
We just want to say thank you to them for not only saving so many lives, but also for making America look so good.
Now their story is told through the feature film 1517 to Paris. Clint Eastwood, who directs the action drama, began with an unlikely casting decision.
I was going through the regular casting thing of looking through a lot of actors and tape, good actors too, and they would have done a good job. But I kept looking at the guys, and I kept looking at their faces, and going over this, and finally one day I just said, "Do you guys think you could play yourself?"
Take me back to when he does ask. What are you thinking when he says, "Can you play yourselves?"
We just couldn't say no. We said yes right away. And then when he left the room for the first time, we all kind of looked at each other like, can we really do this?
We didn't want to risk the success of the film, having not acted before. We're like, I'm sure actors could do it. Like, this is unheard of. At the time, it just seemed so crazy almost.
Was it a difficult task redoing this?
It was definitely different, that's for sure. I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it was difficult, especially to begin with when we first started getting used to just being on set. But once we got used to it, it was still pretty difficult, but I mean, especially the scenes when it was just us, it was just like hanging out with your friends again.
The film takes viewers back to the young men's very early years.
I play Heidi Skarlatos, the mother of Alex Skarlatos, one of the young men who stopped the terrorist on the train to Paris. Heidi was divorced when Alec was young, and she was essentially a single mom, you know, a divorced mother. And her greatest ally was her neighbor, played by Judy Greer, who plays Spencer Stone's mother. And their friendship and camaraderie, these 2 women, really helped one another through those tough years of single parenting.
I wanted to show how it sort of affected everybody in the situation, not just the literal
situation that happened on the train, but how it affected the lives surrounding it.
You guys just want to skip Paris? Or at least delay it a little bit.
We're going to see a bigger piece of the story than we've seen before going to the film. Let's go back to that day in August when you guys are getting up to go about your day, prepare for this trip. Was there something different? Did you feel something odd about the day?
Not odd about the day. Maybe what was odd about it was how close we were to staying in Amsterdam. It was almost a force that we had been feeling all week to stay there almost, I would say. But even the morning of, we had already packed the night before, and we were like, should we stay though? And then I think looking back in hindsight, that was a question within ourselves because without really knowing at the time, that was probably trying to tell us that we need to go. You should have heard this guy. He was talking about how life is catapulting him towards something like some greater purpose or something like that.
Spencer said that?
I know, right?
You still think that?
I mean, I guess, but nothing's actually stopping us. If we weren't meant to be on the train tomorrow, something would physically stop us. An object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by a greater force.
Recreating that train ride from Brussels to Paris where the three friends took down the terrorist wasn't easy.
You're moving it on a train that's going 180 miles per hour, and we had to stay on their schedule. So that means, you know, you couldn't stop and say, wait a second, we're going to back up. And every time we got into a station, we were only there for however long it would be.
Two of you are sleeping, at least when this thing begins to unfold. You two are sleeping. Yeah. So you're awake and seeing this.
Right.
What clicks for all of you to just seem to work so in sync with each other and know what to do? What happened?
Well, I honestly think that probably just goes back to our training because, I mean, Spencer and I both got training in the military and we both kind of fell into our own individual roles. And then as far as the three of us working together, I think that just goes back to our friendship because we've been friends like pretty much our whole lives. I mean, Spencer and I have been friends since we were 5. We all met Anthony when we were 12, and we've all kind of gone our separate ways, but we all stayed in touch, and that's kind of the importance of like keeping up relationships because you never know when you might need to survive a terrorist attack with them.
I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just pushing us towards something, like some greater purpose?
What is this entire scenario, the story, and what you've gone through done for your faith? What has it done?
Definitely
just
reinforced
solidified it.
Yeah.
It's like a confirmation, like we said before, like said previously, like people like look all their lives for like this big biblical moment, like how it was in the Bible, like a confirmation, like this is my miracle, I need to believe, I need to see this in order to believe. And most people don't usually get that, so it's like usually a walk by faith. But for us, being only like 23 years old at the time, to have the factors that led up to it and have that kind of confirmation was kind of like our biblical moment. Like you could, no matter what you thought before, after surviving something like that and the circumstances under which we survived it, that was like, but God, only God, you know?
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
A surprising faith movie coming to theaters. 517 to Paris is coming to theaters tomorrow, and you can find out where it's playing in your area by going to our website, cbnnews.com.